I actually had been dying to show you something that is kind of a continuation of a class that I gave a few weeks ago. So I'll introduce it to you in just like 1 minute because I may let people come by. So, how many of you guys went to the Kenya US Capitals workshop where I talked about confidence in chess? If you did, you can give me like a Zoom reaction. And one of the things I was trying to show you guys there was that it's not good to be overconfident in chess and it's not good to be underconfident either. But anyway, I was trying to show confidence and overconfidence moments in my career and underconfident moments in my career. And actually, for my own work, it was a little harder to find overconfident moments because I was always surrounded by chess players who were better than me and my family. My brother and my dad are higher rated than me when I was a kid. Then I became better than my brother. I became better than my dad at some point. But when I was a kid, it was like a big difference. I was like 1,400 and they were both like 2,300, right? So I felt that generally I had a lot of respect for my opponents, no matter what their ratings were, because I was just used to playing really good chess players. I'm going to admit some more people from the waiting room. But there was one game that I showed you that was actually from the Dragon opening, which is one of my favorite openings, where I aired on that other side. So I'm just going to review the key position in that. Some of you might have already seen it, but I think it's worth reviewing. Sharia and Syria have a question about not knowing the Queen's Gambit. No, don't worry about it. All you have to do is play d4, d5, c4. And then, if you don't know the rest, you'll figure it out. We did give you a list of training videos that you can watch, but everybody is going to be playing it. So if you can't, don't know the lines, you don't have to feel bad because your opponent probably won't know all the lines either. All right, so this is my move. I was black in this position, and I played the dragon earlier in the game, and I played a really good game leading up to this point. So the question is what you should do here, and I have a poll for you guys to vote in as you determine what move you guys want to play. It looks like a lot of you guys were not at my class because you also played the move that I played, which was F5, which is like a really tempting move. And my idea was, and I think the key point here is that I was usually a bit of a slow player, so I got into time pressure. But in this particular game, I was actually with 45 minutes or something here. So plenty of time. And I think I only used like a couple minutes to play the move F5. This is so dangerous. Transposing to a king and pawn endgame when you're not totally sure is really, really risky because pawn endgames are all about precision and tempo. And so if you have time on your clock and you're transposing to a pawn endgame, my biggest advice is double check your lines, triple check. Because once it's a pawn endgame, it's just going to go, tick, 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 tick. Like there's not going to be a lot of decisions that are that crucial again in the game. And so this was a big mistake because my whole idea here was very clever that after pawn takes a6, f2, a7, queen, queen. And now what do I do? Alicia?
You played queen a8.
Well, yeah, queen h1 or queen g2 or even queen f3. I actually have 3 winning moves here. But the problem is that this was quite a horrible idea by me because instead of pawn takes a6, white does what? Sujana, did you want to answer?
White might play king d5.
No, not king d5. How about Anastasia?
Yes. I think that they can just push. They don't have to take.
Exactly. And that's really important because I feel like a lot of times people always look at captures because that's something that you should do when you're starting to play chess, right? But then you sometimes go too far with that and always look at captures as a default without looking at your other possibilities. So absolutely, b6 is the correct move for white, and it's actually a dead draw, unfortunately for me. f3, b6, and just I do get that pawn, but it's not enough because my king's so far removed from the party. And I think we just drew here because she can just go queen a5 next move, and she's just going to win the pawn back right away. What was I rated in this game? I'm pretty sure I was rated like 2,200. So yeah, I was definitely a strong enough player not to do this, especially with 45 minutes on my clock. Like anyone can do this if they're, they only have a few minutes left, but it's doing this when you have a lot of time. That shows overconfidence. So instead, the correct move, let's see if you guys got it. It's actually kind of hard at this point. There's a lot of winning moves, but there's one other in the poll that wasn't winning. Like actually a move like bishop d7 should win. Oh, I'm sorry, after king c5. A move like bishop d7 should win. Bishop e4 should probably win. But bishop e8 is actually uniquely bad because it's very hard to get back from the diagonal and help me stop your pawn from queening. So bishop, and then after b5, I'm like in trouble here if I'm trying to win. So in fact, the best move by far is just bishop a8. Because the key thing about bishop a8 is that when this b pawn pushes up the board, the b7 square is covered, right? That's important. And that would be true with bishop e4. And with bishop d7, it's not the smartest move in the world, but I could always come back to c8. I actually had a margin of error because my position is so winning. Like I didn't even have to find the most precise move. But it's just keep your bishop. What a novel concept, right? It's like this desire to liquidate is very strong because you just want to win the game. And I totally understand. And a lot of times it's a good idea, especially when you're in time pressure. But when it goes too far, it leads into disasters like this. And the sad thing about this game was that I ended up coming in third place, and there was a tie for first place. And the two people who tied got how many points more than me? Anyone want to guess?
I'm
yeah,
thinking half a point.
exactly. Yeah, so I would have tied for first if I'd won this game. So that shows you what overconfidence can cost you. Somebody had a good question though before we move on to the other game that I wanted to show you, which was, I think they were asking about king b6 here. I mean, it's just too slow. Like you're not even getting close and to where you need to be here. All right. And maybe you were trying to play c5 or something. But the problem is here when I sacrifice, it's not like the race from before. You're nowhere near the finish line. So I'm going to queen and I'll be able to mop up. This is an okay liquidation when I have about I could waste like 10 moves and still be winning this position. That's an exaggeration, but there's a very high margin of error here. Okay. So that was, I think, a really important point because, I didn't fall into overconfidence that much. I was more likely to get into time pressure and kind of be on that underconfident side. But I know that players kind of come from all different, personality types on that spectrum. So for those of you who do lie on the overconfident side, that's what you need to watch out for. Hasty liquidations just because you played the rest of the game well. And then I wanted to show you a game where it all kind of clicked and I played really well. And that is from another US chess championship where they actually combined women and men into the same section. And that's where I got my second international master norm. Okay, so this game I was playing black. And of course I played what? My favorite move, the Sicilian. And now I've taught before you guys, and anybody know why I played knight f6 here? I don't usually do that anymore in Blitz because it's just kind of, I don't know why I don't do it. It's probably a good move. There's a reason I do this because normally in the Sicilian you take on d4 first, but this is like just a tiny little finesse. And the finesse is you really need to be a Sicilian expert to kind of know this. Any Sicilian, yeah, Violet, you got it. Violet has the right answer. This move avoids certain lines that are kind of annoying because it coaxes white to play knight c3 to defend this pawn. And then after it takes on d4, if they go queen takes d4, they can no longer play the queen takes d4 lines with like moving their pawn forward. This is kind of an advanced move order idea, but there are some slight negatives to knight f6. Like, I think the main one is that they can try d takes c5. I don't think that's very good though. Maybe bishop b5 check is one option as well. But overall, I think this one has a little bit more positives than negatives. So that's why I played it at the time, because I didn't like playing against those Maroxy ideas.
I actually played in a match today, and they actually took on c5.
Oh, you played? Who did?
Oh, I did. Anastasia in a chess tournament today.
Oh, okay. You played this way, and then
No, I didn't. I was black. My opponent played.
Okay, and then you can take on e4 though, which is pretty cool, right? Because you win like an important pawn here. I think that's the thing. I don't feel. Let me look at the online database real quick, but I feel like this should be like pretty legit for black, because you get to take a center pawn, which is always nice. Yeah, there's like 500 games in this, so it's not like it's not played. And it seems like black does fine. So yeah, I'm not too worried about d takes c5. But anyway, that's just a little aside. But that's the kind of thing when you're playing in a tournament that you get to prepare for, that you study, because you have, some idea of what your opponent might play, so you can learn all the moves behind it. Now, in other games that I've either shown you by me or by other people, I've told you that my favorite move here is what? G6, yes, Liliana. I know, because you like that move too. So I really like this move. But the problem with this move when you're playing in a tournament where people can prepare for you is sometimes it's a little annoying, because they could prepare for you all night and you don't know what they're preparing for you. So I decided to kind of mix it up and play another move, which I also really like, which is the Najdorf. And this one is kind of confusing if you were not an experienced chess player. Can anybody tell me why a6 is a good move? Because it looks kind of bad at first glance. Like your opponent's got two pieces developed and you're just like moving a pawn on the side of the board. Yeah, avoid knight b5, says Liliana. Also, it avoids bishop b5 check, which is actually kind of important. Yeah, because if I play e5, you're not going to be able to stick anything on b5, which is cool. And also I can play b5 in the future. And it's very flexible. Like I can maybe play e6, maybe play e5, maybe still play g6. So I've kind of got all the options open. And I think the most important thing to take away from this, for those of you who are more double king pawn players and don't know them, not really waded into the Sicilian waters yet, the most important thing to know is that the reason a6 is a decent move, the main reason for it is that it's not a very open position. So it's a semi-open position, but there's not like wild open lines in the center where your king is going to get embarrassed because it's on e8. I mean, it could happen, but it's less open than like a Scotch or something, which you can never get away with playing just some random move on the side of the board in a Scotch opening or something where there's like a lot of open files against your king. So that's why. Now he played a very cool idea here, which I like as white too. He played f3. Basically, his idea is to keep this pawn defended so that he can try to checkmate me. Very mean. Bishop e6 played. And I just played bishop e7 because I didn't decide what I wanted to do with the knight yet. Queen g2. So obviously, he's trying to castle queenside. And this is an opening that I really enjoy from both sides. I've played it for both colors. It's very important for him to play queenside castles here. Why is g4 not a very good move? Anybody know? I've made this mistake in Blitz before myself, but this is actually not a very good move. Annika?
I think it's because if you play g4, then you're a little bit, the bishop can take the pawn, and then it will attack your, like, h6 square, where it can, like, go attack the rook and, like, just open up the king.
Not exactly, because that would be giving up too much material. And actually, g4 is a very thematic move, so it's a good move overall. But it's just that black has a really good move here. Elizabeth? You're muted though.
Well, I don't know what move, but the f4 square is weak, and the f3 pawn is also a backward pawn.
Yeah, those
And
things aren't
there's
that
also-
important though, because those things aren't that important because white's gonna queenside castle and try to checkmate. So, they're not really worried about backward pawns. It's like if I mate you and I've got a backward pawn, I win the game. So yeah, Anastasia?
Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe it's because now, like, the file against your king is weak now, and even though you're going for check by pawn storming, checkmate by pawn storming, maybe later they could get their, because the bishop and queen are blocked by the knight right now, but maybe later they can start like putting an attack on your king.
Not exactly. It's a very specific thing. Ananya, This is important. I mean, I know we're spending a lot of time in the opening stage, but this is really important. Ananya?
So I would play d5 as black because it's a very typical Sicilian move to go d5 and whenever you have a chance to.
Exactly. This is so thematic, not just to the Sicilian, but to like chess in general. Because you're meeting an attack on the wing with an attack on the center. So that's great because usually the attacks on the center are even more powerful. And the great thing about this move is that they don't have time to take this and win material because their rook is not on d1 yet. And now the point that Elizabeth made earlier about this pawn being weak is suddenly much more important. And the reason is that as pieces start getting traded off the board, the chances of you trying to checkmate me in some wild attack are going way down. Like if you just start trading off all these pieces, like you're not checkmating me. And now this pawn being backward and this is like ugly and this square is nice potentially, but the main thing is that this pawn is terrible, is really, really pertinent, which is another way to say important. So I think that d5 is a brilliant move. And it's actually got a tactical point too, that if they play g5 here, what can black do? Because g5 looks like a great move because it asks the knight to move and then this pawn would be in take, right? But it's actually not that great. Somebody's got it in chat. Sarah, I think you might have had your hand up from something earlier. Anyone else?
Yeah, it was from earlier.
No worries. Okay, yeah, we got a couple people saying in the chat. D4, beautiful move. D4 is a great move. And you get my piece, but I retain this fork. And you're going to lose a more important piece. And also just at the end of the day, I think these two bishops are going to be nice. And if you try to keep your bishop with something like this, I don't think it's going to work out very well for you. You either have to go into an endgame where you have a weak pawn, or you have to, not be able to castle queenside anymore because you can't because the king can't cross the queen. So yeah, this is a great idea. And it's one of the things you're trying to do in the Sicilian. So that's why my opponent castled first. Good move by him. I played queen c7. And then he played king b1. And I played rook c8. It's really interesting that I keep avoiding developing this knight. I think it's smart, though, actually. And then after g4, what would you guys play here? I'm going to catch a breath and give you guys a chance to tell me what you play here. And there's more than one good move, actually. I'll tell you that right now. All right, cool. Almost everybody voted, so I'm going to stop the poll now. So what I did, which I think is just a fine move, is I finally played knight d7. That seems like a good move. But I wanted to see what you guys would play. Most of you played b5, which is not my favorite move here. And how do I describe why? My brother talked something about something kind of similar to this, actually. One of the problems with this move is that I don't love committing to playing b5 right away. And the reason is kind of subtle, but what might happen one day is I might get something on d5 and then, take with a pawn. And now I sink my knight into a5. Yeah, somebody from the chat mentioned it, Simone. Good job, Simone. And then I'm going to get the c6 square. And I mean, this is not the end of the world. I'm saying black's losing here, but it's like a funny thing that like the move b5 seems so natural and it can actually come back to like haunt you later. Some people want to know the poll results, so I'll show them. And yeah, Greg had mentioned that in one of his opening examples that he gave a couple months ago from his chessable studies. So that's why I don't love b5, although it's definitely usually a good move in the Najdorf. It's just right now, it's not my favorite move. Knight d7 is fine. Knight c6, I don't love either. And that's why I gave this poll, because some of you picked knight c6, and I wanted to just to show you why not. Again, it looks like a nice developing move, right? But it kind of prevents, like I put all this work and effort in putting my queen and rook like that, and the knight is kind of in the way. What else? And it doesn't guard the square, which can sometimes be annoying. And another thing is if I play knight d5 and bishop d5, pawn d5, the knight is attacked. That's actually probably one of the biggest reasons, to be honest. So yeah, that's not my fave. Actually, my favorite move, what I played is pretty good, but I think d5 is even better. I missed it because there's a really cool tactical point here. So anybody who played d5, good job. Did somebody who played d5 want to unmute themselves real quick? Ananya, sure. Why'd you play d5?
Because after pawn takes, I think that the knight can take, and then after knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes, there's queen takes, c2 check.
Almost, but no. Queen c2 is actually a bad move.
Oh, sorry, rook d8, sorry. There's rook d8.
Exactly, rook d8. And that's why it's hard to see this line. This is the second time in the class where there was a possible capture, and this time it's even harder because it's capture with check. There's a possible capture, and that was a bad move, and that caused me to miss something in the line. That goes to show you, as you get stronger, you're so trained to look at captures that sometimes you overdo it, because queen c2 here is actually bad. King goes to a1, and I have no funny business. Queen c1 is protected by the rook and the knight, and rook d8 no longer works because of what?
The queen can just take the rook.
Yeah, queen d8, beautiful. Bishop d8, rook d8, checkmate. You got it. Very nice. The end. So none of that. But Ananya's move rook d8, brilliant. And again, that pawn on f3 it comes into play because Elizabeth was talking about that move earlier. I can't play queen f3 because or if I were white, I wouldn't be able to play queen f3 because the rook on d1 hangs. It's kind of funny. Although I have to say, this is not totally lost yet for white. Queen d8, bishop d8, and they have a rook and a piece for the queen. But it's really good for black. So that's like just kind of a funny line. d5 is an excellent move. So anybody who played that, big shout out. So I just played in a more typical Sicilian style, going for the attack. I didn't mind about giving him this square because my pieces are really nice and my pawn on a4 is just, jamming up the board. This is such a sad move he had to make here, knight a1. Not what you want, but I think his whole point was that on a1, he can maybe use his queen to try to checkmate me because the knight was stopping me from, is preventing all the pressure on the c2 square. But I got to play this move d5, which I've been dying to play. He played g5, and then I played d4. So similar to what we looked at earlier, and that's how having those ideas can be really valuable. He took here, and now his whole idea was that at this exact moment, I'm up a piece for 2 pawns, but my queen is also in capture. So he must have thought this was going to be good for him. Because if he takes on f6 here, I have a lot of beautiful play because he can no longer take on e6. Why not? Let's see, Sahana. Queen b2 mate, exactly. So yeah, that was a lot of compensation for the pawn. Let's put it that way. I mean, I'm not like with my beautiful pieces, it just seems like well than enough, then more than enough, sorry, compensation for the pawn. Like I would try to play knight e5 and knight f3. So he played knight e6 and then he played bishop e2, which is a weird move, to be honest. Like I don't know why he doesn't just take this first. It's a very fancy move because his idea is if I move the knight now, this knight hangs right on d7. So he doesn't matter. He feels he doesn't have to take the knight off too, but I don't think it's a good move. And I probably could have done even better if I reacted a little differently here and played knight c5. I think this was the best move in the position. But I just played rook c7 to protect this knight instead. And I still got a good game. So I'm threatening checkmate again. And notice how the funny thing is, before his knight on a1 seemed like it was performing an important function by protecting the pawn on c2. Now the theater of attack has moved to the pawn on b2 and his knight looks absolutely ridiculous, right? c4. Did I win? Sheree asks me. Well, that's why I'm showing you the game, man. You want to hear the ending to the movie? So he played c4 to protect the pawn here. And then I play knight c5. This is a very unfortunate move to have to make to a3, but it's probably good because he's trying to stop me from playing a3. You got to do something. I played rook d8, and now after rook takes d1, what do you guys think he should take back with here? The rook, the bishop, or the queen? Rook, 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 rook. Everybody's saying rook. I agree, actually. I think the rook is correct. And, you know, I am still down a pawn, technically, but my position is really nice because these pieces compared to your pieces or white's pieces are just delicious. So I'm down a pawn technically. I mean, I could take it back. I'm not sure if I'd even do that though, because then my king get more open. I might just play like a g6 type move instead. And I just think I have crushing compensation. Like the problem is you still have to win the game and the game is a little bit closed. Like there's not a lot of pawn breaks. So it would still take a lot of effort to win this game. But my position is very good. Yeah, good point, Sujana. The worst of all is queen takes d1 because then queen b2 was just mate. So he took off with the bishop, and now I'm going to ask you what you would do. What would you do as black?
WWYD.
Oh, that's an acronym for what would you do?
Wait, we're moving for black, right?
Yeah, black. Yep. That's why sometimes I put these little dots, because if you look at chess books, they'll put like dot, dot, dot when it's black's move so that you know it's black's move, not white's move. Has anybody seen that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
See that?
Can you
I'm gonna before Sahana, I'll let you unmute yourself, but let me close the poll first. So I'm gonna give people till 1:30. So like another 15, 20 seconds.
can you see who voted for what?
Nope. I like that because I feel like sometimes people are shy if they're new to the class or something and they don't like want to feel like they got it wrong. And this format, you don't have to worry about that at all. Like, I'm not going to even know. I just want you to pick what you would play. And then, you know, if you were right, you can feel good about yourself, but you don't have to like worry about getting it wrong or something. Okay. I'm going to end the poll. And Sahana, what did you want to do?
I want to play knight d3 because if queen takes, you can just mate, and you're also putting pressure on the b2 pawn.
That's right. And you guys crushed this one. Most of you played knight to d3. Very good done. Good stuff. Beautiful. And unfortunately, because his pieces are so messed up, there is no way for him to stop me taking on b2. So he actually took on g7 now. And now I took on c4, just making matters even worse. That was also another point of knight b2. And he still can't take on d3 because of the checkmate here. So he played queen g2. Now I get to go in with my rook and check. And what would you guys do here? What would you do here?
As white or black?
As black. Bishop takes, says Violet. Queen takes, says Sujana. It's not mate though. Bishop takes, says Lila. Bishop takes, says Shreya. Knight takes, says Alicia. Yeah, they're all good. They're all winning actually. But I wanted to, I played in the game Queen takes b2 because I think it's just, in a way, it's the most practical move because it's just completely winning. I mean, after queen b2, knight b2, I win a piece. Again, that pawn on f3. All game it's been haunting him because maybe he could hang on by a thread if he had his pawn on like f4 to play bishop f3. But here he's just losing a piece right away. And I did this and I think he resigned because now he can't take on f6 because I have, what do I have here? Just knight c3, right? So that would be bad for him. Although, maybe you could play a couple moves. Not really. So I instead, I think he played just played rook h5 and then resigned a couple moves later because I'm just up a whole piece, especially after this simplifying tactic. But there is one cool line I wanted to show you guys because if I had time on my clock, I'm not sure how much time I had here exactly, but if I had like 40 minutes on my clock or 15 minutes on my clock, I probably had something like 8. I think I would have gone for knight takes b2 or bishop takes b2 because then I could win in some like gorgeous style. Sorry, and not knight f2. Like for instance, why is it not giving me this line? Okay. For instance, this position is kind of cool. Suppose rook h7 happens here. What can black do now? So the idea is if king h7, queen, and now suddenly who's winning? White, right? So instead, what should I do? Yes, rook a1 check. And then after king a1, what happens? Knight c4 is okay, but there's a maiden too, basically. Yeah, knight d1's good too, but knight d3 is the beautiful variation I wanted to show you guys. And then there is knight c1 checkmate. Very unusual checkmate where the knight is hitting the king and it can't go to b2 or a1 because of the bishop. And it's funny because I told you that I didn't play the dragon this game. I played the Najdorf, but it ended up being like a dragon-like game because, of course, this bishop is usually like the key piece in the dragon opening. So yeah, this is a game where everything came together because it was a very complicated game. So easy to get into time pressure, but I was able to make decisions quickly enough that I still maintain a good clock situation and was able to win. So that's what you want. You want that balance. You don't want to be overconfident playing too quickly and making critical decisions without thinking. And you also don't want to be underconfident and, find yourself in like some critical position with like, a minute on the clock or something like that.